Hello and welcome to my podcast, Little Girls Aren't Taught This. I am your host, Self-Love Lydia, former self-love coach turned business coach and mentor. This is the podcast where you get clarity on exactly what it takes to create an authentic business that allows you to scale with sustainability. I'll discuss why strategy meets self-love and spirituality has been the foundation of my success and got me to where I am today. After creating 2 successful brands and businesses driven by impact, I generated thousands in income through the power of authenticity, life-changing signature programs, and passion for what I sell. I am on a mission to show you what's possible when you lead with purpose, when you sell with passion and you create a brand that gets you mentioned at the fucking table. My intention is to empower you with raw topics each week on business, self-love, female empowerment, and spirituality, so you can create freedom in your life with a business that you absolutely love. So let's dive right into this week's episode. Hello, my loves. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am back this week with an episode all around the biggest lessons I have been reflecting on heading into my 30s. So as you may or may not know, actually, I am turning 30 on Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. And I am heading home for my 30th with my family. Like, I cannot tell you how happy that makes me. I am heading home on Sunday, which means, yeah, when this episode goes live, I will be on that flight heading home to my loved ones. It's been 3 months, but it's been a wild, intense, hard 3 months. Like, holy fuck. I did not think it was going to be this hard moving over here. So I am so ready to be back around my mum, my sister, my brother, my friends, my dad. Like, I'm just so ready to be around everyone, and also like just be back in my just be in comfort, like really just have my comfort zone back. And I am back for 3 weeks, which means I have so much time with family. How that's going to impact me coming back, I don't know, but we shall see. But I'm not thinking about that at the moment. I'm just so excited to get home to my loved ones, have a cup of tea with my granddad. Like, I just be in that comfort of my nan and granddad's home. Like, I cannot wait. So I have been reflecting recently on some lessons that I have taken from my 20s, and also like some of the things that I would say to my early, young, impressionable, naive self as she came into her 20s. So it all feels very exciting, and it's not negative for me at all, you know. Like, I don't know about you, but literally I am so ready for my 30s. I feel like I'm a powerful woman anyway, but I feel like as I head into my 30s, I'm like, fuck, things are about to just begin. Like, I don't know why I think that, but that's just the feeling that I get. Just more unapologetic and authentic, which feels exciting. So before I jump into the episode, one of the things that I just want to tell you about is the offer that I am talking about on Instagram at the moment, the CEO audit. I done this last week. Insane. Literally, the transformation for myself was insane, to the fact where I've not shut up about it. And I actually decided to create an offer to help women in business have this level of clarity, have this level of connection, have this level of confidence heading into 2023. So what it is a CEO audit, and what we're going to go into is your whole business, your offer suite, your strategy, your vision, your edges as a coach. And really what we're going to do is audit all of these things to make your offers stand out, like tweaks that need to be made, or even if you just want to make a brand new offer, we're going to build that out. We have 4 hours together, so it's an intensive 4 hours with a week of Voxer support, and we're really, really going to connect you to every single offer, map out a roadmap to success, make it crystal clear on the client journey that you have, how you can get to that figure goal and that impact goal that you want, and also allow you to come into 2023 with just like unwavering clarity and confidence. Like, no longer is it about you. No longer is it just about like throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks or coming up with a random offer on a Sunday. It's like really, really strategically but energetically, like going deep and making it feel so fucking possible for you and your offers, like really encapsulating that energy and that essence of your business and your message and your vision and all of that juicy stuff. So if this sounds like something you would be interested in, the investment is currently $499, which is crazy for the level of like support and the transformation. That clarity, that roadmap, that connection, that confidence heading into 2023. So if you are interested, the link is in the show notes, or you can just drop me a message on Instagram, CEO, and we can have a little chat about it and see if it is for you. So let's jump into the body of the episode. So first, I'm just going to jump straight into it. So there's 3 main things that were coming up for me in terms of like lessons from my 20s. And the first one is, me, is like, obviously it's around body image, but it's, you are so much more than your body. If I could go back and tell myself that, the amount of time and energy I would have saved, the amount of love, self-love I would have felt, the amount of self-worth I would have felt is like times a million. Like, holy shit. Like, we know the story of me with my body, but I think I would literally tell myself that, like, you are so much more than your body. And that really feels like super important for me heading into my 30s, because one of the things that's really interesting and has been coming up is this reflective space around how as we age as women, we feel like we become invisible and our value, I put that in brackets, is decreased because our age no longer starts with a 2, and it's just fucking ridiculous. And it's really been like on my mind the past few weeks, just like sitting and really, really reflecting on what it means to be heading into my 30s and feeling like you will always be held against this unrealistic version of yourself in your early 20s where, everything just fell into place in terms of like, you were in your prime, all of this stuff. Like usually in our early 20s, like our body is our main focus and it's our thing, like being attractive is the thing that we focus on. It's like the thing that we love and we thrive off. And I feel like for me, especially at the age of, at 26, that all massively changed. And I no longer really valued myself based on my appearance. So it was just interesting to reflect on that and just feel like, and just get curious and feel like, I wonder if I went to like a club, for example, at the age of like 30, and someone said to me like, how old are you? And I was like 30, what the difference would be. It's just very interesting to notice like these labels and assumptions that get put on us as women, and actually being at that age now where you feel like they are becoming real in your life. And it's not that I care, but I think I've been reflecting on it more just for like getting curious about, what I'm like just getting curious on all of these things. I'm really using that to like harness my power to kind of like rebel against all of that and feel good going into my 30s. And what's so interesting is like Luke's sister, she's 24, and she's like, you're the only person I've ever met who's like thriving going into the 30s. And she's like, you actually look really good for 30. And I'm like, I'm fucking 30, not like 60. But it's so interesting how you think, isn't it, when you're that age? And 30 feels like it's the oldest thing in the world, but I'm just so ready. And I'm so ready to just care less about my appearance. And what I mean by that is not stop taking care of my appearance, but stop pinning any of my worth to what I look like. I'm really, really stepping into like my career, my power, my visions, and knowing that that's the thing that makes me like who I am. Like the parts of Lydia makes me who I am, not like my body. Like that's so interesting. Like I'm just really excited to watch it all unfold heading into the 30 something bracket. So yeah, lesson number 2 is you don't know everything, so please don't think that you do. And that again is such a big one. It feels like reflecting on my 20s. It's like you think that you know everything and you think you know what's important and you have your priorities in order, but you really don't. And it's like the things that feel like they matter most in the world is just like, it's so interesting now to just think it doesn't even matter. Like you don't know everything, so please stop trying to make out like you do. Like you're so young and naive, and I was pretty mature and switched on for like my 20s because of the type of job that I'd done. But it's so interesting how even now I'm just like, you were just so naive. Like you've just got to mature into yourself, into life, like life experience. Life experience is the greatest gift that we have. And so much life experience is gained, even from 26 to now. Like totally different person, thanks to like a spiritual awakening and stuff, and really changing the way that I think and like how I'm connected in life. That's changed so much for me. But with all of that comes like generational cycles trying to break and healing and all of that work, and it's fucking tough, and like going into your shadow self, and damn, it's like it's hard. And it's just so funny to think back like early 20s, like thinking that you know everything, or thinking that relationship that I was in was like my life would be over if we ever split up. Like it's so interesting. So that's definitely another big lesson. Like lesson number 2 is like, just please appreciate where you are and don't try and be older or feel older or have more wisdom when it's not your place to do that. Just embrace exactly where you are. Which is interesting. Lesson number 3 is that you don't have to do your 20s like everybody else. That's another really big lesson, I think, because for me in my 20s, I didn't have crazy weekends every single weekend. I wasn't massive on drink. I wasn't out partying every single weekend because, like, don't get me wrong, when I was in my teenage years, like, and we were in high school, I was doing that every single weekend. So it's like by the time I got to 18, I went to sixth form, I was kind of like over going out drinking every single weekend because we would literally go out Friday and Saturday. Those good old days of just being on the park. So I got like all of that out my system, and I had so much fucking fun in my teenage years with such an amazing group of people. It's like when I come into my 20s, that wasn't really my focus. And I was really lonely for the first few years in my 20s. I've spoken about this before, but I didn't have like any friends. There was parts of my 20s where I had no friends. I had no one I could really pick up the phone and call because, you know, I just had experiences where I was bullied and women just judged me and they would just not be nice to me at all. And that was really, really tough. They were a tough few years, like massively. But what that did mean is that I really, you know, excelled in like my career. I excelled in, you know, things that were important to me, like relationships, being around my family. Like, don't get me wrong, there was pockets where I had friends, but those friends would always like fall out with me or just turn nasty over some friggin' stupid reason. And so I had pockets where I'd done like girls trips away and like went away on holiday, but I think what I mean is like I never had like one solid person who I could be there and talk to and like have as my best friend like throughout my early 20s. But yeah, what that just meant is that I spent a lot of time in my relationship, and it really meant that I become comfortable in my early 20s where spending weekends on my own and figuring out what it is that I like. And, you know, I have a mum and a sister, so I was like hanging out with them and going away with my sister and stuff. So I had a different experience, and I think it's also okay that it wasn't like everybody else's. And then what that did mean is when I met friends, like 26, it's weird, it all just changed so much, because that's when I met like one of my best friends, Sophie. Like I've known her since I was 26 and I met her in the gym. And I met my boyfriend Luke at 26. And I really started to get a group of people around me who were like my people and who were like my lifelong people. So I had that pocket of time where, you know, it wasn't like everybody else's, and it was lonely at times and it was painful at times, but it meant that by the time I came into myself, like 25, 26, I was just thriving being on my own. Like I just loved it. Like I loved it. I was just happy. I just wanted to explore the world. I just really had like a zest for life, and it was just very interesting. And I think also one of the other things is like not doing it like everybody else is. I loved my job. Like I loved what I was doing in my early 20s. I loved working in the criminal justice system, and I was around a lot of older people. So, you know, it's what I also think one of the biggest lessons is like it's okay for you to really carve out your own path. So by the time I was 26, I had so much experience in the criminal justice system. Like my CV, I always laugh and say like it's really impressive, because it is. And then, you know, by the time I was 26, I was self-employed as a personal trainer, and then I went traveling, and then that led me to being a coach. And now I'm 30, I have like a really good understanding of what it is that I want to do. I have a master's. So like, yes, there was things that weren't the same as everybody else that was painful, but the pros of that are okay. And I kind of just feel like that's the lesson of like, it's okay for your weekends and your life not to look like everybody else's, and it's okay for you to be focused on your job, your career, like your independence, making money, like setting your life up. Like kind of weird, like reflecting back, but I've always been a woman who's just like had her own money, and you know, like had a nice car, paid for it, and you know, was working and had a good wage coming in. And even when I left the job and went to personal training, like I just made it happen to the point where like I could sustain that same level of lifestyle. So I've always been driven like that, and I think that was probably one of the things that maybe did make me a little bit different. And it's not a bad thing. So I think that was, yeah, a massive lesson for me in my 20s, and something to take forward and remember in my 30s. So one of the other lessons that I really think is important is knowing that no one has the right to make you feel like you're not worthy. And this is huge for me, and this is something that I embody, and this is something I've truly felt into for the last few years. But I remember in my early 20s, my relationship made me feel like shit. It really made me feel like I wasn't good enough. My body made me feel like I wasn't good enough. You know, my parents separating made me feel like I wasn't good enough. All of these different things just always made me feel like I wasn't enough. And the relationship was the biggest one. Having no friends made me feel like I wasn't enough. I would question, you know, what's wrong with me? Like, why is it something that I must be a horrible person if, you know, all this is happening? And really that perspective change was it was profound. And the biggest thing that gave me that perspective change was doing the work on myself, was noticing how insecure I was, and really being honest about those insecurities, and really, really doing the work to notice how those insecurities played out. So like in the relationship, like I've spoken about this openly, but if we were in like Nando's on a Friday and someone come in and she looked pretty with makeup on, I would automatically make a bitchy comment to my boyfriend about the way that she looked. Nothing like super mean, but just enough to like make me feel like she wasn't better than me. So it might be like, oh, she's got so much makeup on for a Friday in Nando's, like that's embarrassing. And I realised it was because I was so terribly insecure. So what I was doing was deflecting that out onto other people. And that was one of the biggest things that massively changed for me. And my boyfriend always makes a comment now, and he's like, I've never met a girl who would just randomly talk about how pretty girls are, or I could be on the beach and I'd be like, oh my god, her boobs look really nice in that bikini top, or her hair's really nice, or she's got such a nice smile, she was so nice. But now, like, because I am secure in myself, like, that comes out. And I don't even say these things to women, I just say them out loud, because I truly believe in, like, spreading that kindness and, like, being that girl that's not afraid to say, like, uplift other girls rather than tear them down, even if they can't hear me. Like, it's just the energy that I love being in. So that's one of the biggest things that's changed. And that perspective shift in myself, I was talking about this in therapy yesterday, but that perspective shift in myself allowed me to shift the perspective on a lot of things in my early 20s. And it made me realise that it wasn't really about me. It was about other people's behaviours and their values and, maybe their insecurities. And it was never anything that I could have done to change that outcome. So I always thought that if I done more in the relationship or whatever it was, like, if I just done more of these things, then, I would just, the messages behind my back would stop, or me just feeling like I wasn't good enough would stop, and I would fully be seen in my relationship. And what I realised is that actually, like, we don't have the control to do that. Like, people operate on their values, their value system, and, their own insecurities determine a lot of their behaviours. And that was massive for me. So one of the biggest reflections and lessons from my 20s is that, like, nobody has the right to make you feel worthless, and it says more about them than you. And that's often like a cliche one, but I really, really lived into that in my 20s, and it was so profound. And I'm so thankful I got those lessons, because I truly believe that's one of the core things about me as a woman now, and I feel really good about that. The other lesson that I got from my 20s, which is huge, is that nothing lasts forever, and you can get through more than what you think. And, apart from, like, my mum and dad separating and it being fucking such a bad breakup and, like, period in my life, that was, like, mainly the only, like, big life thing that I had coming into my 20s. So that happened when I was 21, and obviously my relationship was something that just absolutely, like, was always causing me, like, emotional turmoil, because I just didn't have the skills to, like, deal with it, or the self-worth to get out of it. And I think actually that lesson comes mostly from 2020 onwards. So it's like lockdown and then losing my nan was, like, the most painful thing I've ever been through. And I'd never lost anyone. So yeah, I'd had, like, my parents that broke up and all of that stuff, but I'd never truly lost anyone before. And losing her in 2020 was, it's like I just changed, like, it just a part of me was it will just never be the same, because that's what happens when you lose people that you love, right? You in a way you just lose parts of yourself, and you no longer have that, like, innocence anymore about you. Like, you understand what death feels like, you understand what losing somebody feels like, and that never goes away, that lives with you. You just build your life back up around that, and it just gets easier to deal with. And that was the hardest thing that I've ever been through, and especially going through that in, like, the period of lockdown. And then also, like, the infection last year and having the one boob, and then just, like, even just small, like, life challenges, like doing the masters this year and really, really having to put so much work into it. And I think the reason why I say that's a lesson is because I remember being in the depths of those things. Like, I remember being in that grief where you are numb and, like, everything is just black and hopeless, and you're, like, that feeling where you're like, it's life is never going to be the same, because I don't like, you can't make sense of how it's going to be the same. You know that moment where you can't ever imagine smiling again because you feel guilty at the thought of smiling, and you don't want to smile because you feel like you're forgetting about that person, like that period of grief. And I remember thinking, like, I'm never gonna get through this. Like, this is who I am. And then I remember just one day waking up and smiling at something, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I remember journaling and just realizing that I hadn't cried in a week, and I was like, okay, things are shifting. This is interesting. And often when we go through hard times, we're going through it for like the first time, unless you've lost multiple people. But like, it always feels as like difficult and as raw as like the first time. And it's like with the infection and losing my boob, I had fucking no idea how to handle that. Not a clue. Nothing had ever prepared me for that. Nothing had ever prepared me to lose somebody. Nothing had ever prepared me to like move my life, because it's something that you only know how to deal with when that situation arises. And I just remember like over the past few years really, really thinking like, oh my God, like this just feels like it's been my reality forever. Like not being able to go to the gym last year for like 6 months of the year. I remember thinking like, that's so long. That's so long. Like, and every single week I would be like, oh, all I want to do is just go to the gym. Like, that's all I want to do. I just want to train. I remember having the one boob, and 3 months, when I got told it was 3 months, felt like someone had just given me a jail sentence. I was like, how am I meant to get through 3 months with one boob? And what I learned in this moment is that when you're going through something hard, you don't look at the time frame in front of you. You take it day by day. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I've got. So whether it was grieving my nan, whether it was the one boob, whether it was the masters, I would just think about it. It's just one day. Get up and just deal with that day. Don't think about the journey ahead. Don't think about the end goal. Don't think about all of the hard work that's in front of you. Just wake up and think about, how can I get through today? What can I do today to make me feel better? And that is so profound. And before you know it, 3 months has passed. Before you know it, you're back in the gym. Before I knew it, I could talk about my nan and think about it without crying my eyes out and feeling overwhelming despair. I could talk about it and feel love and feel acceptance that she's not here, and feel and miss her, but like really use that in like a nice way, or just give myself permission to miss her and cry, and then also move on with my day. Like, it didn't have to be a consuming thing anymore. And that's just such an important lesson that I've taken from my 20s. And even like going through breakups, like we think it's the end of the world. And, when we have our relationships in our 20s, we think, oh, like he's the love of my life, our first love. And like, I'm never, ever going to be without him. And what am I going to do? And the reality is that you get over it. Like, you literally get over it, and you reflect back and you think, oh wow, okay. Like, that was just a chapter. It is what it is. So yeah, that's another big lesson I've taken. Like, you can literally get through anything. You are so capable of it, and that's a blessing. And then the last lesson from my 20s is just being fucking go for it. Like, absolutely go for it. Don't overthink, just fucking do it. That's been huge. And again, that has been massive from like my early 20s. Always applying for those jobs that were just high wage. So like when I came out of university and I was on like, it was 24,000 a year. I'd be applying for jobs that were like 32,000. Like, I didn't have the exact skills, but fuck, I'd try. I'd create a CV that would try and make it seem like I had those skills. Like, I didn't care. I was just like, I'm just going to take these opportunities and just build my career and just do the things that I want to do. And if the job sounded good and it sounded like I wanted to do it, I was like, fuck, what's the worst that can happen? Just put my CV in. And that definitely was a big driver for me for always like moving on in jobs, like quite, not quick enough to get like a lot of experience, because they were very high paced jobs, but never settling in the same role, always being like, okay, what's the next role? What's the next pay bracket? What's the next role? And I don't think it was about not being satisfied. I think it was about being driven and knowing that I wanted all the pie. Like, I wanted everything and I was coming for everything, and I was just audacious as fuck, and I was just like, I want more money, I want this job, like, this is what I want, so I'm gonna go for it. Like, I don't want to be stuck, like, when I'm 30 being a support worker on 24k. Like, that's not what I want. I want more. And I just always had that about me. You could probably say I had that about me before. Like, I've always been like that as a person. And also, like, I really had to adapt to judgments, because I got judged like fuck in my 20s. Like, early 20s, my life was like a constant cycle of fucking judgment. And it started mainly in sixth form, because that's when all your friends, they all like disintegrate into like their own paths, don't they? And I was the only one that went to sixth form, which meant I went into a new sixth form and didn't really know anyone and had to make new friends. And I went from like having this really outgoing, tight-knit group of friends, like two different very good friend groups where I could just totally be myself, and then went into this environment where it was just, I was just judged all of the fucking time. And that's actually where I got bullied in sixth form. And I would just literally be judged walking into a room. Like, people would not even know me, and they'd just be like, don't invite that Lydia to our party tonight. And my friend would be like, why, you don't know? And they'd be like, yeah, but we don't want her to come. People were just fucking mean. Like, that's what I realised as well, as people are fucking mean. And it links back to what I was saying before about different perspectives. And, you know, every single time I went into a job role, I remember I'd walk into an office of like older women, and I'd have to prove myself every single job that I went into, every single job. I remember I went into probation and I'd only been there 2 weeks, and someone pulled me into a room and they were just like, I just want you to know that, like, people are talking about what you're wearing for work. I literally had black tights on and a dress and like shoes. And there used to be a woman in the office that would wear jeans and leather boots and like tight tops, and she had big boobs. She was an older woman, and she would wear like the leather boots and stuff. And I remember this girl pulled me in, and she was like really nice. Like, I'm still friends with her now. And she was like, just so you know, like, people are talking, and you know, like, what you're wearing is not appropriate. And I remember thinking, I'm wearing like a high neck, kind of gone off on a tangent, sorry, but like, this has just come to me now, and it's a really big lesson from my 20s. And I remember being like, I'm wearing like a high neck dress on black tights, and just because it's like above my knee, apparently it's like inappropriate. So I was like, okay, whatever. And I remember I'd always have to prove myself, so I'd feel uncomfortable going into situations. And maybe that's part of the reason now that when I'm in a situation with new people, I'm quite introverted, and I like to take a step back and just observe what's going on. Now I have the tools and the skills to understand people, to be able to observe it from a space of like, let me just get a feel for you. But I think that came about from me not wanting to be judged and me just wanting to assess how I can fit into the situation. And I remember I got really, really close to this one group, like this group of women in probation, and they were in the end corridor, and I'd always go in there and talk to them, and I got super close with them. And I remember we went for a weekend away, and they were all pissed, and they openly said to me many times, like, we judged you so hard when you came into our office because we were all jealous as fuck. Like, and I think it was because I've always had this like level of confidence. And the thing is like, I did shrink myself a lot in my early days, and I done that because I was always dealing with judgments. Like, I just people would just judge me based on my fucking face, and I'd be like, I can't do anything about my face. Like, I can't help if I'm like you could say like a good looking woman. I can't help it. Like, but I don't want that to be the focus. Like, I want you to know that, like, I want you to know Lydia. And I constantly felt like I had to shrink myself in order to fit in. And I constantly felt like my looks were either used as something that would get me ahead in certain situations, or used as something that would be a tool for hate and criticism, and it's very interesting. And I think that's why it was so refreshing in my, you know, when I started to have that awakening in like my middle 20s, and I was just like, I just don't care anymore. Like, I just don't care. Like, I don't care if my body's deemed good. I don't care if you think I'm attractive. I don't really care if you're giving me comments anymore telling me that I'm pretty. Like, it doesn't bother me anymore, because I truly started coming into like my purpose and my personality as like a PT and helping women with body image. And that's when it all changed for me. And that's when I was like, I'm no longer bothered about people judging me. Like, I'm no longer bothered about what people think of me based on first assumptions. Like, I have so much that I want to do, and you know, like, I am a good person, and that really shifted the narrative, because in my early 20s I didn't feel like people made me feel like I wasn't a good person, or like I should just, like, the judgment was so normal. And then it just became a thing where I was like, no, fuck, I am a good person actually. Like, I have a lot to offer, and I just really own that. So I did digress a little bit, but I think that was a big lesson that I learned in my 20s as well, was just like really dealing with judgment and really being able to navigate that and understand that. Because that's a big thing that we fear, and that's something I feared for a long time, was judgment, massively. And you know, I would really change parts of myself. And it kind of felt like I had to go through every time I got like a different office job. And this pattern, by the way, I'm not just saying it happened once, I'm saying it happened with friends groups, it happened in jobs, it happened with people who I thought were like really good friends, and it was just a constant pattern that would repeat, and it would push people away from me when they didn't even know who I was, like, or if they did know, if they were really close to me, like, they would just push me away. And it was hard. That was hard in my early 20s, but massive lesson now, because I found my people, and I know that I just own who I am now. Like, I just am who I am, and I love that, and I love that so much for that like early 20s Lydia. I'm just like, girl, like, we done it. Like, we just didn't give a fuck. And if I was back in a situation now, or like if I am in a situation now, I'd have to walk into a room, I'm just like, this is who I am, like, and I own that. And that's really nice. That's so refreshing to be like that. As I've, you know, edged into my later 20s, I can't remember what I was originally saying. Oh yeah, just go for it is what I was saying. So yeah, the last biggest lesson is literally go for it. Like, no one cares, no one gives a shit, and this is your life. And I think I embodied that massively with like the traveling, quitting my job. I remember sitting around the table and like all of my family were like, why are you leaving your job to be a personal trainer? Like, that was so below for my family, the job that I was doing now, because that job was secure, civil servant, pension, benefits, good wage, go to work in like a smart outfit, all of that stuff. And then I was going to work in a gym, and they were just like, and it come out of nowhere. I was just woke up one day and I was like, right, I'm not doing it anymore. And I was discussing it around the table, and I remember having to sit around the table, and they were all saying it to me, and I was like, no, I'm doing it. Like, I'm not happy, I'm doing it. And when I went traveling, I was like, I'm doing it, I'm going. When I went back to do my masters, people were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm doing it. And this is the biggest thing that I want you to know. It's like, it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. My family don't even really understand what I do now. And I remember it took me a year of being self-employed, or maybe it was 2 years. No, it was 2 years. It took me 2 years of being self-employed. And I remember my dad sent me a text message, and he was like, on New Year's Eve, I'm so proud of you. I believe in you, and it's been amazing to see you grow. And I remember reading that message out loud to Luke. I remember where we were in Bar and Grill in Liverpool, and I got that text message, and I was like, wow, like, people are truly seeing that, you know, what I'd done, like, it worked out, and, you know, I wasn't stupid, like, and it didn't have to make sense to anybody else, but I said I was unhappy, and I was gonna do the thing that made me happy, and I've done that. So big lesson is just go for it. Just like, even moving over to America, I'm just like, fuck, If I have to come back on a plane and set my life up in England or whatever it is, like, I don't care. Like, it makes for the story and the journey. And the other big thing I took from this as well is like really holding my own identity and following my own vision in a relationship. So like, for example, next year I've said to Luke, like, I'm going to Bali. It's not a case of me even asking. It's not a case of me even getting his permission. Like, I made this very clear in my relationship from day one, obviously because I left and went traveling, which I'd booked before I met him, but people were saying, are you still gonna go, and all of these things, and I was like, well, of course. And I remember stipulating, like, these are the things that I want to do in my life, and I am not willing to give Lydia away. I am not willing to lose the essence of Lydia and everything that she is, because I lost that before. I left a 6.5-year relationship and I did not know who the fuck I was. I had no sense of identity because I just completely merged into this relationship that I had in my early 20s. And that was a massive thing coming out of that, realising I will never do that again. And as I grew up and I've got older and I've come into my own, I have my own things. So like next year, I have the Divine Self-Love Retreat booked. I'm going to go on that and do that. And that's going to be a business thing that I go to do. And that's Lydia's thing outside of the relationship. Lydia's going to go to Bali and she's not going to ask anybody's permission to do that because she doesn't need permission. Because the thing I always live my life by is like, if I don't do these things, one, I will just lose myself in the relationship and that's not good. I don't operate well in that situation. But what if I wake up and I'm 35 and I think I should have went to Bali? What if my relationship falls apart in 10 years and I think I've got kids and I think, fuck, I should have done all of that stuff that I didn't want to do? This is your life, like, and you respectfully have your own life. You know, if I was saying, well, I'm going to go to fucking clubs every weekend and grind on guys, and well, that'd be a different story. But going to Bali and having like a work and retreat holiday, of course I've just moved my whole fucking life across the world to my boyfriend's vision. Like, there's absolutely no way on this planet I'm not going to go and do the things that I want to do. Like, nobody has the right to tell you that you can't do that. And if they don't like it, it's like, well, if Luke didn't like that, it's like, unfortunately, like, this is important for me in the relationship, and you know, I'm not willing to make I make so much sacrifice in all other areas. I'm just not willing to make that level of sacrifice because I also have my own life, and that's so important. So just do the fucking thing. Just please do the thing. Go to that solo retreat. Come to my retreat, the Divine Self-Love Transformation in Mykonos. Go to that yoga class on your own, go out with those new friends, go to a coffee shop and read a book, book a flight to go traveling, book that one-way flight, get your backpack, be around new people, be out your comfort zone, dream big, make loads of money, like have loads of impact, just live a happy, just not even about happy, actually, just live a life that allows you to do the things and don't overthink the things. Do not overthink them. Just fucking do it. Like, doesn't even matter. Just do it because you'll figure it out. When I come back from traveling, I didn't even have enough. I remember going into Starbucks and thinking my card could get declined here because I've not worked for 3 months and I have just traveled and had the best 3 months of my life. But I didn't care. Like, I literally did not care because I just knew I'd figured it out. I figured it out when I went traveling. I figured it out when I quit my job. Figuring it out now, moving to California. Figured it out when I set up a business, and here we are. So these are my lessons from my 20s. What a fucking ride. Like, what a good few years. Like, what an amazing few years, actually. And I count my blessings every single day that I am the woman that I am at the age that I am, because, you know, it just feels like a blessing to just have this way of thinking and these thoughts from my mid-20s. Like, there could have been a lot more years I lost and wasted, worried about my body and should I do things and what are people going to think, and shrinking myself. And thankfully I never done that. So yes, these are my lessons, and I am heading into my 30s and it's Scorpio season, and this is super powerful. This is my season. So I'm so ready for it all. I always have a good time of year this time of year. And I'm so ready to be back in England with my family and cozy nights and all of that wonderful, and roast dinners and Nando's and small roads and being able to get the train to places and going into a supermarket and just buying halloumi or chocolate, and it's just like home, and not having to pay $6 for a packet of rich tea biscuits. Like, you do, like, oh, I'm so excited. So on that note, my loves, I am going to leave you. I shall be back next week as a fresh 31-year-old. And on that note, I see you, I love you. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I hope this podcast has served you in some way with some lessons and thought provoking